everyone, my name is Lisa Lopafito and I'm here with my mother,
Robin Lopafito, and we are going to make some banana nut bread. It's a basic quick bread, which is fun because once you have the basic recipe down, you can throw in whatever you want. So mine is a basic banana with walnuts, and Lisa,
mine is a almond flour based banana bread with chocolate chips. Mine is the low carb version.
And mine's always the high carb version.
Hers is the regular version. Mine's
Right.
like the fancy.
Because Lisa's grandma was an amazing chef.
This is one of my mom's favorite recipes to make. Growing up, we had it all the time whenever there were extra bananas. She's visiting me in town, so I thought it would be fun for us to bake something together.
Right,
Follow along as we bake, and we'll do a taste test at the end to see whose is better.
right.
Let's get started!
Now I use my recipe. I put all of my mom's most famous recipes on a website called bigoven.com.
Yeah, follow her at bigoven.com/tripletoys.
I printed my recipe out from there.
Yeah, she's very smart. She has a printer at her house, which is a very cool thing that a lot of people have.
Old people have
I
printers.
don't have a printer, so I wrote mine out on a piece of paper.
And where did you get your recipe?
My recipe is from Pinterest. I typed in healthy banana bread, and I found one of the first options with almond flour. So
Okay.
we're using that today instead
And mine's
of
going to be
regular
wheat flour. So
Perfect.
here we go. Now the first thing in any recipe is get your oven hot. So we're going to preheat the oven to, both recipes say 350.
350.
So is our oven preheated?
Nope. Almost got confused. It's 346.
Yes. Preheating the oven means that the whole oven will be hot. If you don't preheat and you just turn it on, it heats up at about 500 degrees until it heats 350. So you're going to burn the top of whatever you're cooking.
That's good to know. I do that with pizza a lot.
Yeah, I know. We all do it. We're going to grease our pans, and Lisa doesn't have like Crisco shortening type grease. So we are just going to use a little bit of butter, and we've washed our hands, and we're just going to smear it
A little
around.
bit of butter.
This
Feel
is
like
the
a cat.
unhealthy part of Lisa's recipe.
It's fine. Butter's good for you.
But it's just a tiny bit.
No, butter's a healthy fat.
Yes, it is.
So the goal of my recipe is to be like a lower carb. It's not
Okay.
full keto, because keto would be like, you can't even use bananas. But it's just like a lower carb if you're watching your carb intake.
And when it says to grease the pan, you just put a light coating of the butter or shortening all over it. And then we're gonna set it aside. And one thing that I always do, which I forgot to do here, is I always turn my water on nice and hot before I grease my pan.
Smart.
Because it's really hard to wash your hands.
The heat of the water helps wash the grease off.
Yes, and so I forgot to do
Burn
that.
your hands. Now my hands just feel moisturized.
Right. Natural moisturizer.
We've buttered up the pan.
Right, and I'm going to move the shortening once we're done with that. Now my recipe calls for 1 2/3 cup flour, but I have found that weighing is much more accurate. And so I
It's
have
going European on us.
I know. I have a cooking scale that I keep set on grams, and I printed out from the internet a little cheat sheet
Full European. Grams.
that tells me how many grams are in cups of flour, then sugar, brown sugar, has a whole bunch. So I used to look up everything every time.
That's so smart.
Sometimes it's on the side of the box, and sometimes it isn't.
Very smart.
So what I'm going to do is hit the tare button to power, and that zeroes it out. So we're going to use that for the bananas.
I'm just putting it here so we have a line of vision.
Yes, sorry, there. So there, and
We zero it out.
Yep. See? So now with the bowl, it's going to measure right on there. And it's 120 grams per cup. So third of that's 40 in a third. So it's going to be 120 plus 40 plus 40, which is 200 grams. So I'm
Easy.
just going to pour that in.
Meanwhile, we have Gatito here to explain to us that cats aren't allowed on the counter.
If you get a little too much, I just use a spoon because I've got 236, and I just carefully spoon out till I get to my 200.
So I don't like to measure things, which is why we're doing 2 separate recipes. But this calls for 2 cups of almond flour. So we got our classic American cup and almond flour. And we're just gonna pour it at the top.
And Lisa's using a liquid measuring cup, and that's why it goes higher than actually 2 cups. Because if you use your little copper ones, it'll be flat.
Does the liquid measure, it's the same measure, or will this be off?
No, it's the same. It's just you can go to the top with a solid versus a liquid.
I see.
So it just makes it easier. But that's okay. Because a lot of times you use what you have.
Yeah. I could have measured in the other ones. I just didn't feel like it. That's how I cook.
She's always been like that. Now I'm going to add some sugar to mine. And I need a 1/2 cup of sugar, which is 200 grams per cup. So I'm going to use 100 grams. I've already got it at 200 grams of flour, so I'm just going to add another 100 to take it to 300 grams. Because then you can just keep measuring in the same cup. There we are.
Except I don't know what order. I think mine wants me to add flour last, surprisingly. So I'm not going to just put my dries together.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know if that's the baker's choice. That's just what they told me to do on Pinterest.
One of the things when you're writing a recipe out, because I had all my mom's recipes and all her friends wanted them, so when she passed away I put them all on the internet, is write all the directions that you can, because sometimes there's those little things that your mom or your grandma or your aunt may have told you that aren't in the recipe. There's always lots of that stuff. I like it. Her sugar cookie dough says, put enough flour in until it's a soft dough.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Most dough is soft.
Yes, it is. So I always write like what that means in the description. Now we are making, these are called quick breads because they're breads without yeast. And that's why we use a baking powder and baking soda is instead of yeast. And you don't have to let them rise all night and all that stuff. That's why they're called quick breads.
Did not know that. That's a fun fact. Quick bread. We got our molten salt here.
And I'm going to get baking soda because we need that too.
After getting mine started with baking powder, I realized I was actually supposed to add baking soda. So I started over, and here I am using 1 teaspoon baking soda.
Spoons, I'm gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of molten salt.
Oh, and I need the salt too.
And cinnamon, but I think cinnamon's delicious and I think it's fun to do that. It's supposed to be 1/2.
That runs in the family.
There you are.
This,
Okay, these are my dries, my other dries.
3/4. Now when I measure 3/4 of a teaspoon, I basically take it almost to the top, but not all the way. And that's going to be 3/4.
Fabulous.
Okay.
So you do a mix of grams and the spoons.
Yes. Because the grams just give you a more accurate. The problem when you're measuring flour is you don't know how packed it is.
Yeah.
Like salt is
You
salt.
don't want to take the sifter out. That's such a hassle.
Yeah. We used to always sift our dry ingredients, but nowadays it's pre-sifted. So instead of sifting, which also mixes, I just use my whisk. And this way I've got my dry ingredients all mixed up without having to get the sifter out and double sift everything. So that's our dry ingredients. And the one thing I do before I put all the dry ingredients away is I look at my recipe one more time because that way I don't forget everything. So I've got the flour, baking powder, baking soda, salt, and sugar.
You do have baking powder?
Yes.
Cool. I have my baking soda and my cinnamon and my salt and my almond flour separate.
Now we need about 1 cup of chopped nuts for each recipe. Nuts don't add anything to the chemistry.
Yes,
of bread,
okay.
So you don't have to be as accurate.
They don't impact the baking chemistry.
Right. So I'm going to take about 1/2. And what I wanted to show you, I forgot my rolling pin because they need to be chopped. You can see how some of these are real big and some of them are really small. So what we're going to do instead, because I forgot the rolling pin, is I'm going to borrow a glass of wine that Lisa had. And instead of using it like a knife, I'm just kind of smashing them like I would with a rolling pin. I think it gives a little better texture and
it almost keeps the texture.
Yeah.
It doesn't smush them as much.
Plus you got like kind of the little powder in there.
Okay, so she just showed us how her fancy wine trick. But an alternative would be to smash them with the smasher. Where's my smash?
Oh yeah, we left it in the drawer. We thought we had our mise en place, which means everything in place, and we didn't. So she's gonna use a
This is
smasher.
a meat tenderizer.
And she's not gonna hit it too hard or she'll have it all over her kitchen.
Yeah. And I should also probably put this in a Ziploc bag, but
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Nope.
Smash.
You could also chop it with a knife. The knife doesn't give you as much of those little tiny nut crumbs, and I like it the way the nut crumbs kind of go into the flour. So that's why I like to do it this way. Yeah.
Perfect. Gatito, no for you.
Now we're going to do our wet ingredients. We're going to save the bananas in a separate bowl for last. So let's each of us grab a bowl. If you want to give me one of those silver ones.
For the bananas?
I like the bananas to have a nice flat base because it's easier to mash them. So that's why I want to save this for the
Ooh, I
bananas.
might have to grab one of those too.
Oh,
we can do that together.
Right,
True.
do that together.
Share
I
our
just
bananas.
split them. Now I brought my liquid measuring cup, which again goes above a cup, and I need what do I need? 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. We're using canola oil. You can also use vegetable oil. You can use sunflower oil. Whoops.
Huh.
This is a nice one because it's silicone and so it's
Gatito.
really easy to.
Down.
Do you need any?
I do not need any oil.
Oh, okay.
I'm oil free.
Okay.
I need
So I'm all done with that. I need some lemon, so I'm gonna kind of just beat my lemon on this nice quartz countertop a few times. Do you need a lemon?
No, I just wanted to also do it. I like to do this.
So that way it kind of breaks up the pulp, and we are going to cut it.
Oh, wait.
Oh, sorry. There, I'm gonna cut it.
That's fine.
And then I'm gonna squeeze it. I need 2 full, is it tablespoons or teaspoons?
I say use the whole lemon because I love lemon.
And we're not gonna do that. We're gonna use a full tablespoon.
Do you want the lemon squeezer?
Oh, look at that. I've never done. What I do
Go ahead.
is I just do this. The seeds get in there, but I wait till the seeds are done, and then I just pull them out with nicely washed, freshly washed hands.
So I'm adding my liquefied butter to the bowl.
And I still have my other half of lemon in case.
Put it in here.
Well, I'm gonna measure because I need to measure that this is
I might
exactly.
steal some of your lemon.
Yes, you
I'm a
may.
big lemon fan.
I need a full tablespoon, so I'm gonna let Lisa have as much of this lemon
Oh, yummy.
and that left over as she wants, and I'll oversee
Lemon and butter.
And I'm gonna wash my hands since I just.
So my next ingredient is bananas.
Okay.
So as soon as she's ready for the bananas, I can get started. So how many bananas do we need? Mine needs 3.
I like 4.
I'm gonna do 4 too. I want to be cool like mine.
So we're gonna put all 8 in here. Now, usually I use ickier, browner bananas.
Yes.
We're gonna do these tonight, so we're gonna mash them extra. And there's a trick with banana bread too. If you have bananas laying around, they're starting to go brown, you can stick them in the freezer.
It's a good trick.
And they turn into mush, but they keep the peel. You let them thaw when you're ready to bake your bread. You can basically open one side and just squeeze them out right into your recipe. You don't really have to mush them up with the masher very much.
So you put them in the freezer
Whole. Put them in the freezer whole.
And then you go, boop.
Then you take the nut, thaw them. You have to thaw them, or you're gonna have a mushy banana sickle, which is kind of weird.
So you put them in the freezer when they're that browner than this.
Yeah. You can also put them in the refrigerator to brown. The sugars,
We could have done
when
that.
it's
to make
colder,
these browner.
the sugars will turn into.
So often, banana bread is one of those recipes where you're like, ah, darn it, all my bananas are brown.
Right.
I'm gonna throw them away. That's when you put them in the freezer, and when you have enough, you make banana bread.
My mom always put leftover bananas in the refrigerator in the fruit drawer, and she'd wait till she had 3 or 4, and then she'd quickly make.
I understand now why Grandma's house always had brown bananas. Right. I don't really eat bananas that much. So my next ingredient is bananas.
Okay.
So as soon as she's ready for the bananas, I can get started. So how many bananas do we need? Mine needs 3.
I like 4.
I'm gonna do 4 too. I want to be cool like mine.
So we're gonna put all 8 in here. Now, usually I use ickier, browner bananas.
Yes.
We're gonna do these tonight, so we're gonna mash them extra. And there's a trick with banana bread too. If you have bananas laying around, they're starting to go brown, you can stick them in the freezer.
It's a good trick.
And they turn into mush, but they keep the peel. You let them thaw when you're ready to bake your bread. You can basically open one side and just squeeze them out right into your recipe. You don't really have to mush them up.
So you put them in the freezer
Whole. Put them in the freezer whole.
And then you go, boop.
Then you take the nut, thaw them. You have to thaw them, or you're gonna have a mushy banana sickle, which is kind of weird.
So you put them in the freezer when they're that browner than this.
Yeah. You can also put them in the refrigerator to brown. The sugars,
we could have done
when
that.
it's colder, the sugars will turn into.
So often, banana bread is one of those recipes where you're like, ah, darn it, all my bananas are brown.
Right.
I'm gonna throw them away. That's when you put them in the freezer, and when you have enough, you make banana bread.
My mom always put leftover bananas in the refrigerator in the fruit drawer, and she'd wait till she had 3 or 4, and then she'd quickly make.
I understand now why Grandma's house always had brown bananas. Right. I don't really eat bananas that much, so I don't have them lying around, but if I do, I will.
Now, I use a potato masher. You can use a fork, and that takes a really long time.
Well,
and so I just use a potato masher.
Keep my butter solid here, or liquid.
Because you can use a fork, and that takes too long. And this, here. This is turning these nice bananas into just little mush, just like mashed potatoes. I use my masher for a lot of things. When I make strawberry shortcake, I give them just a tiny, the strawberries and sugar, just a tiny little mash. It adds a little sauce, gets the sugar in there. I use them for potatoes. I use them for my bananas.
Mash them. You remind me of Gollum when it's like mashed potatoes.
Yes.
Or is that the other guy?
That's Sam. Boil and mash them, put them in a stew. And we're just gonna separate this. I'm gonna whisk up my egg, oil, and lemon. The reason I like to have my lemon juice first is that's gonna keep the bananas from browning. So I like to have that ready to go.
Lemon juice keeps banana from browning. Ooh.
And we're gonna add about half in here. So
yeah, you can have half. I'll take
that's
the other
half.
half.
And she's
now I
got half.
can get started on mine.
So we each have about 4 bananas. And again, the bananas aren't part of the chemical reaction in baking, so we don't have to measure exactly. It's about 3 or 4 bananas.
Yeah, just like there's about 5 tablespoons of butter in there.
Right. Now I'm going to add my dry ingredients. And what's your next
I'm
step?
going to add my maple syrup. I only needed a half a cup. And I'm like, I don't need a whole bunch, so I just got this. It's 3.4 fluid ounces, which is a little less than half a cup, but you know what? It's close enough.
Yes. So I'm gonna wait on mine. I don't want to put mine in the oven until right when I mix my dry and wet ingredients, because that's when the bubbling starts with the baking soda and the baking powder. So I want to wait right till the end. So we're gonna watch Lisa do the next few steps.
You're gonna watch me open up the maple syrup. I'd be more careful, but since I'm going to throw it away, it doesn't really matter. Woohoo!
It's so cute.
Unfortunately, we're using my phone's selfie camera for this, so I'm relying on these little notes I took, which aren't very thorough. Basically, the opposite of everything you described.
That's okay. We've always had different cooking styles, haven't we?
Yes. All right, whisking it, and then it says whisking eggs, and I need 2 of them. Excuse me, Grandma.
And
woo! A 1. Can you open up the trash can?
I can.
Oh, perfect. A 2.
And then she got a little tiny piece.
Oh, I got the eggshell.
Eggshell.
Going in.
I would have whipped them a little bit first. For most recipes, if you break up your eggs with a fork, just a little bit before you add them, it helps them disperse.
Very smart. Very smart. This says whisk, whisk, whisk until you can whisk no more. That's what it said.
I think that's after you add the dry ingredients.
That's what I paraphrased. No, actually, surprisingly, it says, oh no, you're right. Whisk and eggs, and then...
Because this is not really hard to whisk yet.
Yeah, that's true. So it said basically stir until combined.
Okay.
And then we add our dry, but not our flour, our almond flour. I still need to add my vanilla extract.
Okay, I would do that now.
Yes, that's next. That's right now.
And how much do you need?
I need 1 teaspoon.
And I can help you with that. Bloop. It's always good to pour it over. If you're not really good at that, pour it over a different bowl.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it all goes into the mix and you cannot get it out.
If it's like one of those measurements that
Yes.
matters.
Right.
Okay, and then we whisk, whisk, whisk.
Right.
And now,
I think we're
I'll let
ready.
you go. I need to add this next.
Yeah. So I was going to add my dry ingredients now.
We can both do that.
I'm holding off on the
We
nuts.
both have whisks. I didn't realize.
I brought mine.
And whisk some more.
And a quick bread, again, it just kind of looks like a wet dough. You want to make sure you're scraping the edges and the bottom.
Mine says don't overmix.
Right, that's why I said that's the last thing we do.
Yours looks more together than mine. Hey, look, Dad waved to the camera.
Hey, hello. Can I try?
No,
Yeah.
he meant try the food, not try the cooking. And this will be baked. No.
Don't overmix.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop right there. So mine, I'm a little. I just realized the recipe didn't actually say almond flour on it. It said flour, and I decided to use almond.
So we're experimenting, and that's good.
Good.
Mine looks a little more doughy. Lisa says a little wetter.
So I'm
So
hoping.
see
I'm
what
like.
happens.
I'm here thinking maybe I should add a little more flour.
I don't know.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna stick
Well,
to my
why don't
instinct.
and you don't forget you're still
Maybe we'll
adding.
the rest of this.
Okay, and don't forget you're still adding chocolate chips, which we haven't measured.
True,
We
true.
messed up and didn't measure the chocolate chips.
I'm adding those in. Those weren't in the recipe either.
Okay.
I'm just freestyling.
There you go.
Freestyle, quick bread. It already looks a little better.
There we go.
Oh yeah, my nuts.
And I normally live, we're here at Lisa's house, which is probably about 1,000-foot elevation or so. in
No
Austin.
idea.
I live at a city that is a mile high, and so some of my recipes I've had to change because the elevation affects how fast it cooks, how slow it cooks. This I haven't had a problem with. It takes longer to bake, though, at elevation. So always look into things like that.
Yes.
Now I am going to start adding my nuts because I don't want it to sit too long without going in the oven. The oven is ready. I'm only going to add about 3/4 of this because I want some nuts on top.
Oh, have fun.
And if you don't want nuts on top, add it all in now. If you want a sprinkle of nuts on top, then you just say reserve, it's called. In a recipe, it'll say reserve 1/4 cup of nuts. So I'm going to reserve some of my nuts.
Likewise.
So I'm just reserving, like I say, about 1/4 of it.
Yeah, same.
Now this is where you can't stir it that well, but you want to evenly distribute the nuts in your recipe. And then we pour it into our pan.
And I'm adding chocolate chips because
She likes chocolate.
yum. And we didn't really add that much sweet, so we have room to splurge on chocolate.
I'm using my whisk, but Lisa had some nice little scrapers. So I'm going to grab a scraper. I'm going to stick the whisk here in the sink. I'm going to use, this has a Christmas tree, and I always go for anything Christmas. So I'm getting all of it out.
Oh, that smells good, looks good, yum. So you can eat that. Don't eat that one. Let's see if we can get the camera looking at this.
No, it's hard. First,
Ooh, I should reserve some chocolate chips too. That'd be fun.
that's interesting. Okay, so my pan's all scraped out.
Might I borrow your spatula?
Yes, it's a tiny one.
Less for us to clean, but I guess I could use mine too. It's fine. Gonna have a lot to clean either way.
But always make sure it goes into the corners and give it a couple taps in case there's some air bubbles at the bottom.
Good call. I wasn't sure if that was gonna like deflate it, you know?
Yeah, not at this point because it's just so fresh.
Not for banana nut bread.
No. And now I'm just gonna sprinkle my remaining nuts.
Oh, you cook it. I see. I thought we were gonna add it after,
No.
but we do it now.
Cook it, yeah.
Ooh.
'Cause that way they kind of get a little bit of toasty in them. And I just do this by hand because I can get in the corners and I got some dust at the bottom. So mine is all ready to go, which I think I can show a little bit that way. And then she's got that nice dust. She's just gonna put it right on top.
Dusty.
And you can anything that calls for walnuts, you can use pecans. Anything that calls for pecans, you can use for walnuts. They've kind of the same texture. Yeah, little slightly different flavors. So it's just up to what you want to do. And then we're gonna go I'm gonna put mine in the oven.
Yes.
Well, we're going to.
Me.
Are you ready? Okay. And mine takes an hour to cook. We think hers might be the same, so we'll see you in an hour.
We'll see you then.
After 55, 60 minutes, we checked the temperatures, and it took 65 minutes, and they were both between 200 and 205. So I took them out of the oven. This one turned out really nice. It rose a little in the middle. I have made them before where I didn't leave it in long enough, and it's sunk in the middle. I don't do well with putting the stick in to see how dry it is or how wet it is because it always looks the same to me. So we use the thermometer instead. This one got extra cooked on the outside and it sunk a little bit after a while in the middle.
Okay, so it wasn't always that flat.
No, well, it's totally
sad.
flat when we took it out. But it was the right temperature.
Okay.
So it said it was done.
Okay.
So it could be because of we know when we were baking it had the moisture.
We knew it was wetter.
Yes.
And it didn't really have any of the rising ingredients.
So
Kinda.
so we are letting them cool in the pans on a trivet. And once they're cool, we will turn them out and let them finish cooling out of the pan. There we go. We flip it back over, and now we're just going to let it, because the pan retains the heat.
Yeah, we wanted to
Now-
cool, heatless.
We're going to see what happens with this one.
Yeah, let's see. What's gonna happen?
We are going to loosen the sides just a little bit. Because as you can see, different ingredients make it cook differently.
Especially when you don't follow a recipe.
Notice she said that, I didn't. So now let's see.
Oh yeah, look at that log. Ooh.
Oh, it broke a little bit in the middle. But we are just going to turn it over and let it finish cooling.
Fabulous. Can't wait to dig inside.
Now, I really liked what you did, Lisa, when you saw that there wasn't enough, there was too much moisture in yours, so you added a little more flour as you were going to get the consistency right. So you can see they both have a very different, but they both are cooked inside. The shapes might be different, but they're both cooked inside. This is the wheat flour, this is the almond flour, and with chocolate. And now we're gonna do a taste test.
Yeah, mine did get a little burned around the edges. I'm not proud of that, but you know what? The inside is still beautiful.
It still looks beautiful. Yeah.
All right, let's
So-
taste test. We're gonna bring the boys in too, but maybe we should cut some. Come on down. Y'all can just enjoy it. Let us
Yes.
know what you think.
Yes, you can talk to the camera.
We too. I want to try too.
Okay.
This one has more
It's
density
ideal.
and more moisture, and I would call it nuttier.
This one to me tastes more like banana nut bread,
Which is what we made.
and then this one tastes more like
Chocolatey banana bread.
it's more like a moist banana loaf.
Instead of a bread. And I don't think we should ask what the difference between the bread and the loaf
I'm not
is.
sure.
It's in your head. Yeah.
This one has more of a bread texture. This one's more like a
loaf.
moist loaf. Almost more like a pound cake texture.
Interesting.
All right, so here's the real question.
Okay.
We don't have to answer. No one has to answer, but which one is better.
They're both so good.
Good answer.
They're both good for different reasons.
Bread versus loaf. Well, I think both are delicious.
Yeah. So this
Okay.
one is like maybe 10 carbs per serving instead of
Right.
30 or 40. That's the difference. And also I like chocolate, so that's why I added chocolate chips.
And I'm a purist, so my banana nut bread wouldn't have chocolate.
They're good.
They're good. 2 thumbs up.
You happy?
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
And that wraps up our banana bread video. This was so fun to film. Thanks for joining me, Mom.
Thank you. It's fun to cook with family.
Yes. I was always in the kitchen growing up watching her cook, and I would always help or wants to help, but then I'd want to do my own spin on it. So we would like, maybe it wasn't the best idea. So this is how we learned to cook together.
Yes, I did this one. She did this one.
Yes.
There's no arguments.
It's perfect.
Yes.
So thanks so much for following along with us. My name is Lisa Lopafino, and this is my YouTube channel. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Let us know how yours turned out, and I'll see you in the next video.